Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, thank you. The first service felt a little bit odd, but this service feels like home. So thank you for having me. The other day I was talking to Abel, and I've known him, I think, for like 18 years. So he was saying to me, you know, you came to me that Sunday at that meeting, and you had this word for me, and it changed my life. And so I hope that something of that is carried over today, that the message of who God the Father is transferred into your heart, and it's carried out of here today. I think that's ultimately what we want to be as Christians, is God's light and His hands and His feet. And so I just want to start. I'm sorry for doing this, but community is such an important part of who we are. So there was two things I wanted to say. The first was, it was so nice this week. I haven't been here the last 2 Sundays, and I was missed because I bumped into people, and they said to me, "Are you okay? Your husband is at church, and you haven't been here the last week." So I said, "Yeah, I got whatever bug was going around, and it really struggled to leave me." So that's such a wonderful picture of community, that we missed, and that we belong. And the second one was Oscar. I don't know where Oscar is now, but Oscar, when you sing, it's just amazing. It feels like the heavens are open. And while we were singing, I saw a picture of my son. He's got an amazing music talent. He just doesn't believe it or see it yet. And as a parent, it's like, how could you not use this? So we're gonna get Oscar in and get him to surround our son. What a beautiful gift to give to others. So I am sharing today a bit about my father, the Father. So I don't think my story is unusual or in any way. It's just as a occupation, I am a parenting coach. It's a big part of what I do. I do life coaching in different settings, but parenting is a big thing. So that's why Abel has asked me to come and share something of what I've learned over the few years, and I'm sure I can learn as much from you. But today the heart is really to show you towards the Father. So before I start, I want to ask you, and this is actually interactive, who of your husbands, okay, let's ask the ladies, who of your husbands will stop and ask for directions? Aldrin, I see you. I hear your laugh as well. Okay, so I'm, this December, I'll be married for 20 years, and my husband is very gracious. We like complete opposite ends of any pole that you can get. But one time I know that I should not talk is when we are asking for or looking for a way and trying to find our way somewhere. But the reason I brought this up is I want to maybe change your view. So we know as Christians, we are called to heaven. We're going to heaven. That's ultimately. But what if our destination is not heaven, but a Father? What if our destination is a person, not a place? And so that is something that I want you to think about today as I talk, that we are called to a Father. And so what a great privilege. So in these 2 scriptures, it's in John 14. "And if I go and prepare a place for you, I come again and I will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also." And John 14:28 says, Jesus tells his disciples, "You heard me say to you, I am going away, and I will come to you. If you loved me, you would have rejoiced, because I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I." And so as we follow him, our children follow us, but we're going to a Father. I want to share some statistics with you. So one of the organizations I partner with also an amazing, I realized as I went to this, I have a lifetime of amazing stories, and I'm still young. But one of those stories is how we got to the World Needs a Father organization, and how we've just helped to serve in that way. But these statistics are from the World Needs a Father organization, and this is South African statistics. So we see that it's very heavy statistics. 63% of suicides come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists motivated by displaced anger come from fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions come from fatherless homes. 40% of all children who do not live with their biological fathers. So that's more or closer to home. 85% of children with behavioral problems come from fatherless homes, behavioral problems. 90% of homeless children come from fatherless homes. 71% of children who do not finish school come from fatherless homes. So I want to share something of my story, and it might not be a common story here, but it's a common story if we read these statistics. I've never shared these things, so it really is a first, besides in the first service now. But I do believe that you should always share what you have when you are healed. I have been healed for a long time, but there was just never the right time. And so when Abel shared to me, I felt like this is a time because it's relevant in South Africa. So I was born into a home, I'm not sure where. I don't have much memory of my early childhood, 1 to 6 years old. As you will hear, it was very traumatic. And yes, I believe that God uses all of these things. So I have 3 memories. So my first memory is sitting in a bar in Hillbrow next to a man. And in my picture, this man doesn't have a face. And so that is my first picture of a father. So my second picture is, please don't cry. It's a very redemptive and full of grace and mercy. But the second picture, I have a twin sister. We're identical twins. I turn to the right, and I see a glass sticking out of her neck. Obviously very adrenaline-filled, and I look to the front, and again, it's a father without a face. The father who's put me in this situation because he is a drug dealer, and he is now rushing somewhere. It's my second picture of a father, and my third picture is a picture of an absent father, but a picture that my sister is, I guess, a greater image for her. So we lived in Hillbrow at that stage, and we were playing in a park, so 5 years old. And my sister says she looked and she saw a man, which she believes was Jesus, in her picture of it, saying, "Where is your sister?" And so she looked up and she saw a man holding my hand and walking away with me. So obviously, you scream because you know that's not anybody you know. And again, just a picture of an absent father. And so I want us to remember that there are many people in South Africa, in the world, that have those statistics. And so this might not be applicable for you, but it's applicable for the children that your children go to school with, the people that God will give you influence with. And so we always want to work in that way. And remember this. Okay, so one of the first scriptures, I want to introduce you to a father now. One of the first scriptures this father introduced me to was 1 John 4:4. Greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. And that scripture is like my default setting. So I go there. That's where my mind goes when I'm going through a hard time, when I have a difficult situation, when somebody else is in a difficult situation. But this is my father. So he is, my parents met, my mom remarried. We were about 7 years old. And a wonderful man, Nathan. So my son has that name, Nathan, because it carries a lot of weight in our lives. So my dad, he was a Hindu. He grew up in a Hindu background, also in drugs, in gangsterism, and he left he left Natal. And anyway, long story, he was in Africa for a few years. He met my mom. They got married. Beautiful story. Really so full of grace and mercy. But I want to take you to this part of my story, that we moved to Bloemfontein in 1997. So my parents had been married for a few years. We moved from Hillbrow. We were living in Fourways and that area, and we were involved in a wonderful church there. My parents were sitting in two different, my mom was in a toddler's room with a lady who had just had twins, and my dad was sitting somewhere, and someone was preaching, and he said, so there's a church plant to Bloemfontein, and God has called someone here to go with. So naturally, it was my parents that would go to Bloemfontein in 1997, and that's how we got here. But as my journey unfolded with my dad, my father, I saw a man who understood what carrying the mantle of a father is. So a man who does not have biological children. He adopted 3 children, but he has adopted many, many children along the way. So when we moved to Bloemfontein, he would go, to the dumps and back and doing house and so on. And he met Solly. So Solly is exactly my age, a young boy who had no father, who is absolutely a statistic, who lived on the dumps. And my dad would bring him on Saturdays to work, would just be there, would help him. He would go away for months, back to the life he knew. My dad would go and fetch him. So a father of constantly reaching out his hand. So beautiful story. Solly is now married. He has 3 children. His wife actually works for my dad in his business. And that is my picture of what a father looks like. Someone who reaches out to those who don't have a father. And he will be forever one of those people who changes people's lives because he has met the Father. Okay, so in Luke 1:17 it says, "And he shall go before him in spirit and the power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." So I did share with you, and I said that in the beginning, that maybe our destination is a father. So then we are called to be that to those around, to show people who the Father is and what it looks like. So I want to share 4 pillars with you, 4 important results or roles of a father. And so these have been researched. So this is The World Needs a Father material, but there are many people who have preached this long before. And the one was actually Derek Prince. And he talks about the 4 results of knowing a father. And so these things should be evident in our lives and how we live them out. So the first one is establishing authority. The second one is a father confers identity, he provides security, and he affirms potential. So when in establishing authority, there are certain things that need to happen. So like I said, I help parents with their children, with parenting, because it's not always as easy as we see, I think, for many reasons. I have a lot of theories about it. I've seen and experienced a lot. But like I said, that carrying fatherhood, being a parent, especially fathering, is about the mantle of authority that you carry. So it is something that God places on us. It's not something that we become. And so it's not easy to become that if you haven't met the Father and the authority he carries. And so when we think about your children, I'm sure you've got a picture of what you want your children to be. Maybe the picture is what you should become and what you need to be, because that is what our children become. And so it's important that our understanding of who God is and the authority he carries in our life is a clear picture, because that is the picture that is transferred. So with that, we get purpose, and we find discipline. So I want to give you a picture of discipline as well. Discipline is carried over by our parents, by our fathers. But what if discipline is not so much about just correction and showing the way, but more about discipleship? So the word discipline comes from disciple. So isn't it a beautiful picture that that parenting can be a great pleasure? It can be a great joy, because as I, again, follow Jesus, I follow God, I look towards the Father, my children follow me. And I'm not sure how many of you experience parenting as hard, but remember that God is placing this on you, and He gives you this to carry. So the second point is He confers identity. So there's two identities that we want to transfer to our children, especially as fathers. And the first is, I am God's, I'm made by Him, and I'm made for Him. And that is the primary identity, the most important thing that we can transfer to our children. In 2019, 2020, I got cancer. So I had a 3-year journey with that. And I had this most amazing, well, I had a picture, obviously, of a father who was not there, and not the picture you want. Then a picture of a great father who provided in every way, just an amazing person. And he passed me on to my wonderful husband. That's really just an amazing person. And I had to walk through this journey in identity again, going through something like this. And I realized that who my father is played such an important role in that. But I had to turn to God, my Father. So when my dad, my parents were married, my dad did a lot of evangelism, a lot of prayer for the sick in Hillbrow, those old-time evangelists. That was him. So that was my experience of seeing people get prayed for and getting healed, and it was just an amazing picture. And that is what I drew from. So he turned 60 at the beginning of this year, and we were talking about him. And I thought, there's so many things I can say about him. But the primary thing I can say about him is that the picture that I had going through this difficult time was knowing that God is real, knowing that God is a God of miracles, knowing that God is a father and He walks with you. And so as fathers, that's the picture that we leave with generations. And knowing the Father is the only way we transfer that. Okay, so the second one is identity, our secondary identity, and that's who we are, who God has made us, why we are here. And that is the role, especially that our fathers transfer to us. They tell us, this is who you are, this is the gifts you have, please, live them out. And when those two things are not in place, and I know this might not be, I don't want to talk out of any expertise, but a lot of the issues that we face today is role confusion, identity confusion. A lot of that is happening because these two identities are not in place. And so this is where it starts. And so if your children are in an established place where they can receive that, so even a community like this, because we as parents especially will not be everything that we can be for our children, because we're not perfect. We're not God the Father. And so in communities, this is where we learn and we rub shoulders, and they pick up, like our son. My husband and my son they're very opposite. So with people like Oscar, who they can rub shoulders with and see, okay, this is something that my dad said. This is where identity really forms and grows. So the next one is values, and this is such an important, my husband, we talk about this a lot, and he says to me, there's so much of value in this, and it's something that I really encourage people to do in their homes, but I want to say that if your kids are young, it's something you start thinking about, it's something you start living, but as they are teens, it's something that you really discuss. So values are a secret for the teen years. So we've the last year had many discussions on our family values, what's important to us. And my daughter said to me, I was busy doing like an emblem for our values. And I said to her, what's our fourth value again? And she said to me, she's like, if you can't remember, is it really a value? So, well, that's the truth. It was just lots happening. But that's the thing, is your values are lived out. They are what you spend your time and your money and your energy on. And so that should flow out of your life. So it takes out the challenge, I really believe, in the teen years, and here's why. When we as a couple, a husband and wife, say, okay, this is our values, this is how we're going to spend our time, our money, our energy, so our children see that, and it becomes a part of them. So when they are going through a difficult time, they have to make a decision, they have to make choices. We say, okay, let's filter this through our values. So you make the choice. You make the decision. You think about how this will influence who you are, what you believe. And so values are an extremely important part of conferring identity and establishing something as being a father. My dad always said to us, and we were nervous to bring our friends home because he said to us, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I think my view has changed a little bit, but in essence, your friends are so important. And so like I said, in the beginning, with authority, we lead from control. And then we need to move over into influence. So it's the balance of the two. But you have to be there. You have to be present. And I said earlier that an important part, I think the most underrated gift that the world has is a father who goes home, goes to work, comes home, sits at the table, sits at the sideline of a game, is there, is present, is talking. It's a gift that we give to our children, and then they want to share everything with us. They talk to us about their choices. But ultimately, you are the person that puts the thoughts into your child's mind. And so that starts with just conversation. So it moves from thoughts to choices, to actions, to habits, to character, to maturity. But it starts here with the dad's voice and a mom's voice that's saying, this is how we think about things. I had the privilege of talking on a podcast this weekend, this week, and it was obviously about parenting. But the lady asked me, what is my personal win as a parent? And I said to her, the fact that my kids come home and tell me what's happened before I've had to hear it from someone else. It's not major things, not big things, but, there's a boy, there's girls, they get into trouble here and there. But they've come home and told me exactly what's happened and how it's happened. So we already have the game plan of how to fix this thing. And so that is, really what we want to start. We want to start with places where we open the files. We get the information to our children first. They know how to think about everything that they're faced with, because if it's not from friends, it will be at social media. So parents often ask me, so when do I talk to my kids about physical intimacy, sex, drugs? And the key, it should start around 3, but 5 years old. You need to be the person that opens those files, so that at that age, when they hit 12 and 13 and 14, and they've been exposed to whatever on social media or what they've heard, they know where to come. They know that this is the source of my information. This is where the truth is. Sometimes I'm still surprised. My daughter asked me, I think it was Friday, she said to me, so this type of pill that people use, what is it for and why? And so I kind of looked at it, I'm like, why do you want to know that? And she said, to me, well, if you don't tell me, who else is going to tell me? But okay, that's great. I want to be the one to tell you. I want to be the one that helps you form your ideas. Okay, our third point is a father provides security. And it's so important that our children always feel like they are a joy to us, that we are their safe place, but they are an absolute joy. And the father actually sets that climate, that emotional climate in the home. And so, yes, it's hard. Yes, we have lives and there are difficult situations. But my husband always tells this wonderful story of something that changed his life. A story that he heard of a dad his friend would pick him up. So every morning he would come and his friend would be waiting for him. He would walk to a tree and he would the tree, rub on the leaves, and then he would climb in the car. And then when he would drop him off in the afternoon, he would get out and he'd first go to the tree and he would rub this tree. And his friend was like, after a while, okay, dude, I need to know what's happening. Why? And he said, everything that I bring, I leave it right here. And then I go into my home and I am what my family needs for me. And then in the morning, I go and I pick it up again and carry that. And so I realized that there are many men who carry things that they have, been taught or learned in their homes. And often it's that shift of knowing the Father again, drawing all that I need from Him to be able to do this, to be able to teach my children what emotional intelligence is, to be able to communicate with them, to be able to give them the things that they need in the times that they need. And so we are the primary source of communication, of constantly keeping the channels open. And the last point is affirmation or affirming potential. And this is so key. I think all of them are, and they are needed in the right times. So understanding what your child needs, who they are, is essential. We've got a diagram with The World Needs a Father. There's amazing material. I'm sure we will present it as well at a stage. But the mother phase is between 0 and 6 years old. So in that phase, the mother needs to nurture, to teach, to care. She teaches a child intimacy. So that happens at 0 to 6 years, but you learn intimacy also later in life. But there are certain things that only the mother can give. And I want to just mention again why community is so important, is often we don't receive the things that we were supposed to, again, because we are not whole, and we will not be able to give our children everything they need. But in a community with people with the same values and vision and so on, that you learn what you need. I was telling Abel, it's amazing how I constantly go back to when we had our first daughter. I was 25, and I struggled with it. Well, I think you can think of the bigger picture, but I didn't have a picture of a mother and a father in the age that I needed it, that needed to form memories for me. And so I prayed and I asked God, what should I do now? My mother's an amazing woman. We've walked a great journey. But I needed a picture. And I joined a home cell. So at that stage I was 25, and these ladies were 40, 50, 60. And I just loved going to the cell. I still talk about it. I think my husband's like, okay. But I still talk about it because it really shaped who I am. It really brought healing to me. And that's so important in community, and when not getting what you needed, to learn that again. But getting back to the seasons, and so the father's season starts between 6, 7, and 12 years old. So this is the season where identity is actually formed, security, provision, potential. And here the mothers don't end with their job, but they pray and they point the children towards the father so that he can carry this mantle. So again, we're not perfect and we don't always have what we need, but we help each other. The roles are so important and they are needed. And they bring so much healing to the mother and father as well. But understanding that that season ends quickly, so around 13 to 18, it becomes the team, T-E-A-M. So now your children's friends become the most important. So you lose most of your influence by 13 years old. So it's so important to do what you are supposed to do in that time so that you build on for the next season. And so when you carried out that father season, your children come back to you between 18 and 21 for the advice they need, the life choices that they need to make. We laugh at our one daughter. She was very small, and just the way she said it, my husband said to her, so how will you know that that man is your husband one day? How will you know that that's the person you're supposed to marry? So she looked at him and she said, you'll tell me. You'll tell me. So I hope that is the case, but that is the type of influence that we want, and to go over. So understanding the seasons, understanding who your children. This is where I come alive. I do this with team building, that type of thing. Is helping people understand who you are, your design, why, what's it used for, and how do you get there. And it's the same with our children. When they can understand that, when you can understand that, the wonderful thing is you already know what's coming. You know the bend of your child. So you know who they will look like in the season, and you know how to direct them to the Father to correct some of those things. So who they are and in the season that they needed really gives us the tools, the right tools to help our children get to where they're going. So in affirmation, it's a lot obviously about what you're saying and how that's carried over. We have, obviously there's things in our family that are non-negotiables because I help people with these things and I just know these are the basic things and we don't miss it. So one thing is definitely dinner. We'll work hard to eat together every night and to talk to each other. That is where emotional safety, resilience, all of those things are built because your children know I'm going out, I'm coming back, and I'm covered constantly, and I can talk about this, and I know what's happening. So my husband sits at the head, I sit there, my older daughter sits next to me, her sister, the middle daughter sits here, and our son sits here. So I sit across my son. So I'm constantly looking him in the eyes, constantly talking to him. And so the others, we're there. And a little while ago, our second daughter said to me, when was the last time you looked into my sister's eyes? I said, I do that. But when I went back, I realized it's been a while because life happens, and we get busy. And we think, it's teens, they're fine, they're going on. And some of your kids just complain, some just go on. So I said to her, you're going to be fine. It's okay. We just need some time. We're going to adjust to this thing. But that evening, I actually listened to what she said, and I walked into her room because she said to me, my sister has lost her joy. So I went into the room and I looked her in the eyes, and she started really talking about the things that were bothering her. And I realized that this is not just a thing she needs to get through. This is now where we need to help her. We need to speak these things and change some things. And so that is a lot of what potential is. Sometimes they get stuck. Sometimes they need the help. But we have to be there to see it and to be able to move them from point A to B. But in closing, I want to end with two things. So I think that there's two major problems today. It's addiction, and obviously it's trauma. So at some degree, it doesn't have to be major things. But a lot of those things happen at 9, 10, and 11. So we don't get addicted at 30 and 40 and 50 to whatever. That happens when we were first exposed. And then we form the pathways that get us to form those habits. So the opposite of addiction is not abstinence. It's relationship. It's connection. So when parents are telling me, my child is only on their gaming, the PlayStation, it's one thing I hear like all the time. Then I have to say, but how much of time have you placed in this relationship? You know, are you the place that they want to come back to for connection? Because then that will be it will be there. It's normal, it's fine, but it won't be the number one factor. And then trauma. You know, I'm sure all of you are sitting here and you can tell me a story in your home or of someone you know. It's a big, a small, we call small T's, big T's, or whatever. But the idea of this is that trauma is not what happens to you. It's about what happens inside you. Again, when there's connection, when there's relationship, when that is there, we experience the healing power of the Father, of pointing our children to God, and that doesn't sit with you. I've met the most amazing people who have had heavy traumas in their life. I think I'm an example, but that fact of allowing God in that moment and not being alone in that moment is extremely important. And so that is what we carry as fathers. I started with the picture of maybe heaven is not a place, but a person. And so if it's not in your home, for those around you, we must be aware. We must see the children who are struggling, and fatherlessness is the number one factor. And so we have to step up. We have to, if we know who the Father is, if we've met him, and that results in our lives, it will be what we carry over to those around us. And so I want to leave you with that today, that may God the Father really touch you and heal you where you need it.